Alright, real quick, we're going to talk about the TWID. It's Thursday, so we obviously got a TWID. So we have a next developer live stream, which is going to be at June 24th, which is this coming Tuesday in a few days. 10 a.m. PT as always. So, ready to share many details about Armor 3.0 and the new ability stat system. To show you some new weapons and more. So we'll see how that goes. You get a free emblem if you watch. Pretty basic emblem, honestly, compared to what they usually do. Right, 90 continues, a bunch of stuff as always. Melee damage is changing, so I'm not going to go over all of this. I'm just going to say this is pretty interesting. So basically, all the things that can stack with melee will now be able to stack, and they're no longer going to be downgraded. So usually if you have like Sympho plus some sort of extra melee damage increase, they like get less. But if you have just Symphos by itself, you get more out of it. They did that to try to nullify the amount, but the reason they did that is because it was multiplication. So basically it was 50 times 50 type thing. Where now it's adding 50 times 50, or 50 plus 50, sorry, so it's different now. So instead of 50% damage increase plus times a 50% damage increase, it is now 50% plus a 50% damage increase, which is now 100% damage increase, obviously. So they've technically nerfed it, but they've also buffed it now because they're allowing all melees to stack, all kinds of melee damage. Anything that can combo into increased melee now stacks with no negative effects. So it's not like it is currently where if you use let's say knockout and Symphoseps, you actually get less from Symphoseps if you just used no knockout. You get more from it. So now you'll get knockout will increase your damage melee plus the Symphoseps increase as well together. Instead of times, it'd be plus, so that way there's no longer detriment. There's not like, so currently it's like, what is it? I'm going to use this example because I don't remember the exact numbers, but basically let's say knockout was a 10% increase, and then it'd be times like a 50% increase of Symphoseps proc, right? Now it'll be the 10% plus the 50%, which is a 60%, instead of 10 times 50, whatever the fuck that would equal. I'm not doing math right now. I'm too tired. But yeah, so this is better, but currently if it was 50% for Sympho, you would actually begin like, what, 30% or 40% or something. You'd actually lose 10% if you're using knockout. Now you'll get the full percentage even though it's added. So you're technically doing less damage, but you're also technically doing more because you can actually combo that with the new melee thing from the actual armor system and how it works now. Once you get past the stat 100, it increases your damage, so that's cracked. That will stack with it. Anything else that goes increased melee will stack. So just anything in general. Glaives are also getting the same treatment now. They're all going to be kinetic melees, uncharged melee damage. So everything stacks with them. So you can have some crazy increased damage with melees now, including, I'm assuming with Winter Bite, that'll be insanely cracked probably. We'll see. So they're just, it's all adding now instead of multiplying, so it makes it easier to figure out the numbers. But then also, you'll get some crazy random weird bugs to happen as well with damage. So just a better system as a whole. It is less technically, but because now you can add everything and there's no negatives to it, you can just absolutely plow everything possible on it, which is there's quite a few things for each character except for Warlock. Warlock has the worst amount, sadly. Hunter and Titan both have pretty huge amount of different ones that can combo, so that's quite crazy. This includes like the melee for Tether, or not Tether, sorry, for the grapple melee for Strand. I'm an idiot. Strand grapple melee. If you add that with combination blow on Prismatic for Hunter, and then add Liar's Handshake or Symphoseps, all of that stacks, which is crazy numbers. 1-2 Punch was also being buffed to a few seconds increased, which is also crazy. Whereas currently it's like basically instant. It's like a second or whatever, so you can FP really quick. Now it's going to be increased, which means grapple melee is going to be a lot easier for a lot more people. And if you can stack it with ×3 combination blow, plus the increase of other things, well, it's pretty fucking crazy. So, as a whole, melee is about to be pretty broken. I know Consecration's getting nerfed. Ignitions are no longer applied increased damage when you have a melee increase, which is awesome. So basically, currently, whatever your melee damage increases, currently your Ignitions gain that for Consecration or the Snap for the Warlock. That's no longer a thing going to be, which kind of sucks, but it also makes sense to make Consecration not as broken. Now the Ignitions only have their own individual damage, whatever the fuck that is. So they no longer gain increased melee damage from the damage. So that's a great system. As a whole, pretty cool system change. So yeah, you get an extra 30% 200 stat for melee, and that stacks with all this, so that's pretty crazy. So yeah, pretty interesting. I think this could definitely still create some broken builds, but I think it's going to be a lot less broken as it is currently for some of the builds, hence why a lot of them got nerfed. I think this will actually be better for the system, allow a lot more creation and more OP-ness. They also talk about Prismatic here, Facet of Courage. PvE melee damage bonus increased from 10% to 50%, so include that on Prismatic. You have even more damage, which is crazy. Spark of Feedback for Arc. PvE melee damage bonus increased from 75% to 100%. That's also crazy. Now works Glaive Melee at full effect, like I said. PvE melee damage bonus is no longer decreased when used with 7 Steps, Liar's Handshake, Knockout, Warm God Caress, 1-2 Punch, or Winner's Guile. Hints. Like I was saying, all this can combo now. It's kind of crazy. Gonna love to see how this turns out. Warring Flames is getting increased. 200% damage now is pretty crazy. There is a little bit of a nerf to it, sort of. As a note, Roaring Flames increases solar ability damage, and Glaive Melee is always kinetic. We have opted to follow the rules as written for this one for now, so Roaring Flames does not scale Glaive Melee damage. As you see, this would be really cool because even though it does scale solar damage, it is increased to your melee too. So, and I feel like if you had a Glaive Melee, like the exotic one at least, that solar should count. I feel like the exotic one melee should still be elemental, sort of. I don't know, that's just my opinion. But yeah, so it makes sense. Melee damage bonus is no longer decreased when using with Paragon Greaves. I don't know how Paragon Greaves would work with Glaive. I don't know if that could combo with a Glaive, because you got a Titan charge. But you never know if you're like running like you're going to get the sprint going, the Titan charge going, and then you got a Glaive out and you melee, it might proc. I don't know, that could be a bug, who knows. Warm Out Crest, 1-2 Punch, or Steps as well. Knockout, like I said, is getting the same thing. PvE uncharged melee damage bonus increased from 100 to 160. Melee bonus increased. The actual one's 160 as well. Increased melee damage now works with Glaive Melee at full effect. That's pretty crazy. Offensive Bulwark, I don't know what this is, but melee damage bonus increased from 100% to 160. Increased melee damage now works with Glaive Melee at full effect. Melee damage bonus is no longer decreased when used with 7 Steps. Like I was saying, you don't get the full amount that 7 Steps gives you right now, but now because it's all becoming adding instead of timesing, this means it will stack, which is cracked. Banner of War. Melee damage bonus for user and allies increased from 40% to 100%, which is pretty nice. Melee damage bonus is no longer decreased when using Warm Out Crest, 7 Steps, or melee or Glaive Melee. The damage bonus provided to Blade Fear's melee attacks is unchanged. Hunter Stylus Executioner, which I didn't even know this increased your melee. This is actually new to me. I didn't know this was a thing at all, because as far as I knew, all it did was weaken the target, and then obviously the next melee would be increased. So this is new to me. This is kind of cool too. So PvE melee damage bonus increased from 200% to 300%, which is crazy. Now works with Glaive Melee at full effect. Now works with every melee ability if the ability makes contact while you are leaving invisibility. In other words, projectile melee abilities like Threaded Spike will benefit from the damage increase if you use it at point blank. So that's kind of cool, but Threaded Spike doesn't really do a fuck ton of damage, so honestly it's kind of trash. It is cool, but I don't think any of them do some crazy amounts of damage. For the Prismatic, because you'd have to do this with Prismatic. Smoke doesn't do enough, so it'd be trash. So sadly, I don't think this would be broken in any means. But it is still a cool concept, but I don't think it'll be broken. Combination Blow, maximum PvE damage bonus increased from 309 to 400%. It's such a weird number to be, but now it's 400, which is awesome. Increased melee damage now works with Glaive Melee at full effect. Now works with Extension and PvE at full effect. What does this mean? Do they mean like, so if I use Extension, it now gives me my melee back? Because it already does that. So what does this mean? Does Extension increase your melee damage? Am I not aware of this? Does this increase your melee damage secretly or something? I'm really confused on that. Now works Grapple Melee as well. Like I said, this is going to be absolutely broken. Combination Blow plus Liar's Handshake plus Grapple Melee. You're just going to be obliterating shit probably. Potentially, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know what this Ascension is about. I don't know why it says that, because currently if you dodge with Extension and you have the dodge on that gives you your melee back and you're near ads, it gives you it back. So I don't really know what that means, unless that's what it's saying, because I don't think it gives you your dodge back maybe when you get a melee kill. No, it does, right? I don't know, I have to figure this out. I don't know, someone tell me what's going on with that. Does Ascension secretly do something with your melee that I don't know about? Because that's actually kind of cool, and I didn't know that was a thing. So let me know. Whole bunch of armor change. We're not going to go over all these, because damn, this is a fuck ton. Aether's Embrace getting a PV increase. Massive. 100% increase. Liar's Handshake's getting an increase. Double. Ophidian Space, don't even know if this is worth a shit, but never even seen anyone use this, even though it existed, forgot about, but yeah, whatever. Increase 100%. Trident Vance for increased melee for Glaives, 100% as well, which this could increase and make a crazy melee build as well. We'll see. Heart of Inmost Light is getting melee damage bonus increased from 20 to 50%. Now increase the damage of unpowered and melee Glaives, of course. Paragon Greaves, shoulder charge ability, impact damage bonus against non-champions, tormentors, and non-mini boss targets increased from 363 to 400%. Still a small increase, but it's a decent bit too, so that's crazy. Symphoseps and Spirit of Symphoseps is getting its melee damage increase 165%, which we already knew. Wistful Ignorance, increasing the Frenzy Blade damage bonus increase from 100 to 200%. And then Flashlet, I don't know. Storm, which is insane. This is actually a pretty good thing right now, but now it's actually getting a 200% increase from 50% to 200, so 150% increase. It's pretty crazy. I could definitely see a 1-2 punch build with this that could definitely do some damage. Since now 1-2 punch been buffed to last longer, this could be definitely cracked. We'll see. Maximum PvE melee damage bonus increased from 275 to 400%. Pretty crazy with Form Gods. Bonus no longer decreased when using Roaring Flames or Glaive melee, which means that can stack to 400% with any of those, and those have increased melee too, so that's pretty cracked. Winter Guile for Warlock increased to 400%, but it's the only one. Warlocks need more melee-oriented stuff. PvE perks for a whole bunch of increase. The 1-2 punch, like I said, is getting buffed here. PvE melee damage bonus increased from 100% to 150%. Now works for all melee abilities. Melee damage bonus is no longer decreased when using with Flyer's Handshake, so that's pretty cracked. Increase the time the perk is active to 3 seconds. Like I said, that's pretty cracked. That's what makes it so much better. You can definitely crack more. Bastion's getting it as well, from 100% to 300% increased, which is pretty crazy. Bastion's currently, if you didn't know, is a 1-2 punch, but a fusion. And it also has Trench Barrel Fusion as well, but as them together and it's a fusion, you can really do some damage with it. It's pretty crazy. Now works for all melee abilities. Increase the time the perk is active to 3 seconds as well. That's pretty cracked. I feel like it should be more, though, personally. I think it should be like 7 seconds or 5 seconds or something because it's exotic. They did increase it by 150% more than base 1-2 punch, so this is technically going to be way better for 1-2 punch version. So it would be kind of nice if they would have increased the timer to 2 seconds, 2 more seconds at least, or doubled it, just because, you know, it is an exotic, but whatever. Monte Carlo Catalyst is getting it as well, which is pretty crazy. No longer deals reduced melee damage to bosses, many bosses and champions. Winter Bite now receives melee damage bonus from a variety of sources. Reduced enhanced melee damage with Armo plus 20% for bosses down for 50%. So basically, you have to have 20% ammo to be able to do damage, which is better because it was 50%. So now it's kind of crazy or whatever. I don't know. It's pretty cool. I mean, I guess it's lower in a sense, so you have to lower it, but it's still not that big of a deal. It's still cracked, so either way. Whole bunch of armor returning. Dragon Shadow is getting an interesting update. I don't know if this will be good by any means, but it is interesting. Now passively increases stability and reload speed. Kind of wish it was handling instead of stability and reload, personally. But it still gives you handling when you dodge, so I guess that's cool. Speed Loader Slacks getting an interesting increase or change. Dodging reloads all weapons and grants increased handling and reload speed for you and nearby allies. That's kind of cool, and that might be good for bait and switch or elemental honing damage for weapons. If someone has this on, dodges next to you, then everyone gets it, so this could be good for DPS potentially. While this buff is active, additional dodges increase the strength of the buff and refresh the timer. Dealing sustained damage grants class ability energy, so that's kind of the crack part there. Definitely using like the turn for damage. This could be cracked potentially. Mask of Bacchus, hallelujah, this thing is getting a buff. I've loved this thing forever, and it used to be arc weapons increase. It's always needed to be on arc and stasis, and I've been so excited it's finally getting it. Effects are now active when either an arc or stasis super is equipped. Hallelujah. Reworked Light Shift no longer provides a non-stacking surge damage bonus. So it no longer provides a non-stacking surge damage bonus. So it currently doesn't stack. So what they're saying, I mean, this might sound confusing, but basically what they're saying is now any surge you use, and if you dodge of this, that will stack on top of those surges for damage, plus everything else in damage. Anything that's damage-wise will stack with this. So this is good news. This is great news. I'm happy about this finally. Now grants plus 10% damage for eligible weapons, stasis weapons, arc weapons, and Lord of Wolves per stack. So this, I get it. It's kind of because it's Fallen themed. It says arc weapons, but obviously it's technically Queensbreaker. So hopefully Bungie's saying anytime they add a Fallen themed weapon in the future, it will be automatically, no matter its element, will be added to this. That's why Lord of Wolves is getting bonus here. This is actually kind of cracked because Lord of Wolves is really good right now, and if they don't nerf it again, that 10% plus everything else they can stack with it, it's pretty cracked. I can't wait to see what that can do. Stacks up to 3 times, which is even crazier. So it's 10% per stack, I'm guessing, which is a 30% increase in damage. That's kind of crazy. 30% increase in damage plus every other damage thing on top of it is pretty damn crazy. While active, weapon final blows grant class ability energy. So this is pretty easy to activate in a sense. You do it, you get a kill, you get some energy back in PvE. You can combo that really well in ad clearing. And then once you, because it says weapon final blows, not specifically Arc, Stasis, or Lord of Wolves. So it can be any weapon. You stack them up, go to damage with times 3, 30% increased damage. It's pretty easy to do. You know, you get kills, a bunch of kills. Like the Arc, Arrow Denial would be great for this, just because you'll get the increased damage off it, 10%, plus times 3, which is 30%. So that's pretty cracked. I'm very excited to see this in action. I love Mask of Backers for PvE and PvP. I don't know if it's 10% PvP as well, or that's only PvE. If it is 10% PvP, it could be broken for some weapons, but we don't know. We'll see. Khepri Sting, they're completely taking away the ability to see through walls of it. It kind of sucks, but whatever. Like I said, removed true sights. You can't see through walls anymore. Removed automatic smoke bomb activation when using a melee attack. Personally, I kind of like that part of it. When you did melee, it automatically dropped because you could one-tap melee in theory. So kind of sad they're taking away. Killing weakened targets creates a burst of weakening smoke and returns smoke bomb energy. This is kind of cool. It's kind of like the Hunter's new aspect, but you have to weaken them first before it, so it's kind of like combos together. But at the same time, I think that with the automatic smoke melee would be still better, but that's my opinion. Oath Keepers are trash. I don't care what you say. They're not. This buff is not going to make them better, because even though it's cool, the bonus to increase damage for weapons, for bows and stuff in PvE, it's just not worth it compared to what you can run with other damage abilities and stuff to make your damage abilities do more. Plus, all the weapon stuff can make your weapons better. It's just not worth it. The only good bow is really only not Wishender. Le Monarch is about the only good bow, really, sadly. So, but and you also can do it a little earlier in the overdraw, but it's still just not worth it. Blight Ranger is getting a little bit of a rework here. That's pretty interesting. Fix the issue where canceling damage was not consistently scaling based on the mirror progress. Adjust falling meter behavior now requires 25% less reflections to reach maximum, which is pretty cracked. A lot easier to get to max. Fills more evenly. Block melee attacks now count as a reflection. Hallelujah. This is one of the biggest issues with it. It's something with melee you or certain bosses that shoot you. Those shots are actually counting as melee for some reason, which is a bug. But certain bosses do that. Ogres are known for it. Not all ogres, but some ogres have done it when they will shoot you. It counts as a melee for some reason. Wizards with their arc things when they shoot you will count as a melee sometimes. I know it sounds weird, some of you may have never known this, but if you use this helmet, you will find that out. There are some random, not all of them, just random amount of them, that will all of a sudden just not count because it's not actually doing damage, because it's counting as a melee. It's stupid, it makes no sense, but that's just how Bungie is. So I'm guessing they're fixing that since melee, or that's how they're just going to fix it because they don't know how to fix those issues. Maximum cancellation damage increased by 50%, which is pretty cracked, because it honestly does do good damage right now. This is in addition to the fix above. Minimum cancellation damage increased by 150%. That's crazy. So maximum amount is 50% increase, so whatever it is, plus 50%, that's pretty crazy. So yeah, as a whole, this is pretty nuts. Now he applies blind before dealing damage. Hallelujah. Updated visuals, audio, and firing, and timing of the blinding shockwave to better reflect its impact. Thank goodness. That was an issue too. Because Alpha Loopy. Add additional effects, sustain damage while behind a barricade triggers another smaller healing pulse. Healing your allies grants barricade energy. So this is actually really cool. Now if you have Alpha Loopy and you're doing something solo, my voice just died, fuck. Sustain damage while behind the barricade triggers another smaller healing pulse. So if you're soloing shit, you can constantly be putting these out and it'll constantly heal you. This is kind of cool. This could definitely make some of the solo stuff a lot easier, without a doubt. Healing your allies grants barricade energy. The Baby Bitch version from the exotic class items is only getting the healing your allies grants barricade energy, so it's only for people. It's not solo. You don't get the solo benefit, which is healing yourself constantly while doing damage. So, sad, but makes sense. At the same time, I would just put this on and be fine with it, because this is just so cracked of a perk. Phase Cradle is getting increased. Dealing sustained solar weapon damage and sunspot extends its duration. Providing solar buffs to allies have a chance to create a sunspot at your feet. So that's kind of cool. MK44 staticides, these things are so behind. Sprinting with Juggernaut actively periodically grants you a stack of static charge. I don't know what the fuck that means. What's static charge? I don't know. Sprinting while in flight creates an area behind you that grants allies speed booster. That's pretty fucking crazy. Give everybody speed booster, why don't you? Path of Burning Steps increases solar weapon damage and solar ignition damage based on the number of stacks of Roaring Flames you have. Roaring Flames 1, 2, 3 grants 10, 15, 20% bonus solar weapon damage and 5, 10, 15% bonus ignition damage. Stacks of Surge mods, that's pretty cracked. That's a 20% increased damage to your solar weapons. There's definitely some builds there, especially with the new turret, so I'm excited for that. Reduce the duration of suspend, slow, and freeze effect applied to you, which is old. Now increase the duration of suspend applied by enhanced dredgers lashes. I'm kind of sad by that. I think they really should have done it where when it suspends someone, it creates threadlings or something. I think it'd been really cool. Or it causes nanites or something to spawn on them, the little unraveling rounds. But whatever. Active roll rate, auto rifle, or machine gun final blows increase their stability, ammo generation, and damage. Stacks up to 10 times. Higher stack counts expire more quickly. They don't talk about the damage here, what the damage increase is exactly, but this is kind of cool in theory. You use a machine gun, clear out a whole bunch of ads, and then you might be able to do some crazy damage in theory. Or use that special ammo wyvern auto rifle that could do that already does crazy damage, so maybe mix this with this. Get a few kills, 10 times, get a whole bunch of kills, then shoot an ad with a boss of this. Could be something crazy in theory. It does go down more quickly the higher up you are, but if you're quick enough, you could get the max stack of damage off of a couple shots and then go down in theory. Spirit Affluviate, like we said, it's only getting the healing. Your ally grants class ability energy, so you don't get the extra healing benefit of it, sadly, for solo, but that's fine. Starfighter Protocol is getting a buff. Now also activates on radiant damage, which is pretty crazy. Increase the fusion grenade energy gain from dealing damage from 2.5 to 5%. Reduce fusion grenade energy gain from final blows from 20% to 15%. So basically, because the new ability to get your grenade faster, with when you have higher stats using different things, so this in theory should increase your grenade gains by a lot. So 5% normally, if you have over 100 stat, you should be getting a lot more than 5% in theory. I don't know exactly what the percent was anymore, but basically from 100 to 200, you get any source that increases your ability to get a grenade, melee, or class ability back will increase the amount you get from it. But then also on top of that, this will give an increase as well, plus the damage, and you have damage of a grenade on top of it. This could be actually a crazy build for damage in theory. We'll see. Wings of Sacred Dawn. These things are such a pain in the ass, but it's fine. Combads are less accurate towards you while Tomb of Dawn is active. Makes sense. It is similar to Manticore's effect. While a Solar Super is equipped, Solar Weapon Final Blows now grant restoration and reload your stowed weapons. That is pretty crazy. If this is for PvP, the Polaris is about to be a monster of this. Or any other Solar Scout, it's going to be a lot problematic with this shit. For sure, PvP is about to be a lot more rough. Fellwinter's Helm, added powered melee damage, weakens targets, applies 15% weaken. Weaken effect applied by the burst, if melee or finisher final blows are unchanged. It's nothing crazy. It's cool at melee, it weakens with powered melee now, but not really that crazy, so. Prometheus, Spurs, reworked the perk Embers of Light. While a Solar Super is equipped, weapon defeats grant class ability energy, and weapon defeats in a rift grant a different solar verb depending on the rift. While in a healing rift, weapon defeats create a pulse that grants radiant to you and nearby allies. That's pretty crazy. While in powering rift, weapon defeats instead grant cure to you and nearby allies. That could be cracked in PvP. You said they put a rift down, and in powering rift, y'all lane. One person gets the kill, everyone fucking heals. Unless it's only you if you defeat it, but either way, it's still crazy, so. Most of the Assembler, that's a whole bunch of shit. Basically, they've nerfed it and buffed it at the same time. It's the nerfs hurt more than the buffs do, in my opinion. So this is not going to be that great. I might be wrong, but I don't know. It grants the only good change that's crazy good is buff is it grants class ability energy on Noble Seeker Impact with allies. Scale is based on fire team size. So if you're in a raid and someone puts this down, every time it heals somebody, it gives you increased amount of class abilities. So that's kind of cool. We'll see. A lot of this, it's just basically one part does more and the other part does less, and then the other part does more of that part and the other part does less. So I know that sounds confusing, but basically there's two parts to each section. One does more, one part does more, and the other part of that same part does less, and then vice versa for the other one. It's weird, I know. It's not worth reading all that. I'm lazy. That's all it is. Geomax stabilizers. Reduce super energy granted from biotic traces from 4% to 4% from 7%. Just make it a little bit less chaotic than super spamming. Refund sprinting to top off bolt charge. Retune sprinting to top off bolt charge. Decrease bolt charge stacks required before sprinting will grant additional stacks from 6 to 5. So one less. Decrease the amount of time required for sprinting to start granting bolt charge from 2 seconds to 1. Okay. Increase the rate bolt charge is granted, while this effect is active from 1 every 1.5 seconds to every 0.33 seconds. So that's pretty crazy. But that's basically the TWID. That's literally the TWID, nothing else. I mean, we could read this real quick. I mean, we're over the TWID, so might as well read we'll read Assembler's last, why not? So, basically, Noble Seekers no longer spawn in waves and instead spawn at a constant rate based on fireteam size. Average number of Noble Seekers produced per 8 seconds is unchanged. It will produce 1 per ally in that time period. So, if you got 5 other people, it will spawn 5, I'm assuming. I assume it's not going to count you as 1. So yeah, Noble Seeker tracking range changed to 40 meters always, from 20 to 40 meters based on the time alive. Noble Seekers will prioritize allies who have not been healed in the last 8 seconds, which is kind of bad. Because if one person's taking more damage, it's not going to pick them. If someone's slightly weak and the other person's more weak, it's not going to pick you over them, because if you've been healed sooner, if you're more in the fight, you're kind of screwed, so you need to pay a little bit more passive probably. Noble Seekers will prioritize allies who have not been healed in the last 8 seconds. I already read that. Noble Seekers can now target allies standing in the rift, producing them. That is kind of good, because that was the most annoying thing, is you had to be outside the rift to get them, so that's a good thing. Like I said, parts of it's good, part of it's bad. Noble Seekers will not target an ally more than once every 4 seconds. So, in that 8 seconds, you're kind of screwed if someone else has taken damage. But then also, yay, it's weird, okay, I don't know, it's weird. Noble Seekers will not detonate when passing near an ally they are not targeting, which is nice. They will still detonate if they make direct contact with an ally, obviously. So if you get in the way of it, you can get a free healing, I guess. Cool. No longer grants extended rift duration. Now it just, like I said, it gives you class ability over time. Every time it heals somebody. So that's kind of cool. Again, it's not a crazy change, but it is an interesting change. But again, it's more negative on one side and more positive on the other. So there's interesting stats here. I don't know. We'll see. As a whole, that's the TWID. There's nothing else to it. A lot of changes, a lot of different interesting things. I'm very excited for some of these. Some of these are like meh, but most of them are interesting. So hopefully there's more than just that, because that's it. That's kind of sad. I kind of want a little more, just because usually we get a lot more than that for changes. But again, they don't. This only armor and stuff, and this is specifically to melees and stuff like that. So we'll see. We'll see. There's going to be more, without a doubt. We'll see. And that's that. This TWID is over. Hope you found all those changes coming to your melee builds and exotic armor pieces interesting. We are pretty sure some of you have already started theorizing about the new builds and combos that will be the most fun to play with when the Edge of Fate launches. Let us know what got you the most excited. That's the community team. So yeah, I've got a few builds I've been thinking of. I'm definitely putting together and definitely going to talk about, make a video on a couple of them probably. So stay tuned to that. Thanks for watching. Adios. That's the TWID. We out. Adios. Thanks for watching. Enjoy. Leave a like, subscribe, leave a comment. You said whatever the fuck I just said. English hard. We out. Adios.